it's beginning to become a common trend where it's just me starting the show. That's the benefit, or not the benefit, that's the wrong way to word it. That's kind of the drawback, better yet, of doing live shows is that sometimes, unfortunately, because they're live shows, you fly by the seat of your pants. And that can be a scary thing because, unfortunately, things happen, schedules get changed behind the scenes. And sometimes the guest is not always available right away, and you have to wing it. So, as I did last episode with Chief Joe Borelli, which if you haven't checked that one out yet, please go do so. It was a great chat with him. Of course, she worked with Son of Sam case. He gave me an exclusive and never before heard thing regarding that case. That was great to hear for the very first time, and I'm honored, of course, that he shared it with me of all people. So check that out if you haven't, and of course other great episodes too. Phil Grimaldi, Jack Cambria, a lot of great stuff, and a lot of great people that I was able to chat with in the last week, and some exciting shows coming up as well. Tonight should be good. I'm waiting for the guests to arrive. Unfortunately, this is, like I said, the drawback of doing live shows sometimes is that things get pushed back, guests don't sign on yet, and it is what it is. You have to work within that. I apologize for the late start. We were supposed to go live at 7, but it got pushed back last minute. You really can't complain. You just have to roll with it. Is it fun? No. Is it ideal? No. But it doesn't serve a purpose really to complain and moan about it. You just have to roll with it as best as you can. So we're waiting for the guests to arrive tonight. We're going to go back to the sports theme of the show. And I look forward to introducing him shortly when he does arrive. Because, I mean, again, I think it'll be a great conversation. And I think that it'll be something that will definitely touch on a lot of interesting points. The subject matter is always interesting anytime you get somebody of my guest's caliber, who, of course, is a former athlete and will definitely add a unique perspective. I don't want to say who he is yet because I want to give a proper introduction when he's here. But what I will say is it involves basketball, and not just any basketball, but the basketball played by my favorite team, and that is the New York Knicks. So he would know a lot about it. He spent 5 seasons in New York, and I'll give him the proper introduction when he gets here shortly. But in the meantime, again, apologies for the late start. It just is what it is. But I think I'm going to have to get a little bit firmer going forward in letting guests know this is a live show. Please sign on early so that I'm not in this position and I can promptly work around it and get the show off and running. It is late. I know that on a Friday night, so you might be out. You might not see the show till later, but if you do, if you're around by happenstance in your home, tune in tonight. I'd like to see you support the show if you can. This is, of course, the Mike the New Haven podcast. This is episode 148. And if you can subscribe, of course, to the YouTube. I'm closing in on 600 subscribers. I'd like to get to 1,000. Hopefully, by the beginning of the summer, I'm there, or at least close to being there. And definitely before the year is out, I hope I can hit 1,000. And give it a 5-star rate and review on iTunes and anywhere that you get your podcast. It definitely helps the algorithm as well. I don't see anybody quite yet, but hopefully the chat will fill up in short order, and I can have guests, or excuse me, friends in the chat that can chime in and great questions and the support as usual. So, guys, hope to see you, but I hope to see my guest in short order. And like I said, when he arrives, I'll introduce him. So, yeah, but anyway, it's been a busy week. It's been a busy time for the show. Uh, Counting when I started in December of 2020, when I revived the show after hiatus. We've done over 100 shows now. This is going to be the 107th show that I've done since my return in less than 2 years, less than a year and a half, I believe. So it's been a great run, and a lot of different people that we've spoken to, an eclectic mix. And tonight will be no different when my guest gets here. So yeah, it is what it is. It's like I said, you have to fly by the seat of your pants when you go live. The benefit is that there's great spontaneous moments that happen when you're live. And like I said, the drawback is sometimes there's moments like this where things just get, upended on you. And you can't complain. It's difficult, I will say, not to complain. But it does you no good. And it kind of casts a pall over the work that you're trying to do. So 5 minutes after the hour, of course, and I hope to see my guest in short order and that he can be here. We can get this show off and running. I'm waiting patiently here. Um, but hope to see people uh, tune in and support the show. So we'll see. I think it'll be a good show tonight. I know the guests are always interesting, and I strive to keep it interesting. So if you can, just tune in. And here he is now. I'm going to introduce him in a moment here, and we welcome him to the show. Uh,
Hey,
Hey, good to see you. My next guest was a key component of those excellent New York Knicks teams in the mid to late 90s, joining the NBA in 1994 after a 5 year stint in the CBA and playing 9 seasons, ultimately with 3 different teams before he hung it up in 2003. He was the Knicks floor general from 1996 until 2001. There's 2 different camps of the 90s Knicks. There's the Riley era and there's the Van Gundy era. He was a part of the Van Gundy era and helped the Knicks get to the finals as an 8 seed, which has never been done before or since in 1999, and that is former New York Knicks point guard Chris Childs, who joins us now live Friday night on the Mike to New Haven podcast. Chris, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
No problem. No problem. Good to have you here. So you grew up in Bakersfield, California. Take me through it.
Yes, they get it confused with Los Angeles because you say California. Everybody grew up in Los Angeles, Orange County, Long Beach, but I'm from a small town in the valley near Fresno, California, and we've had a lot of exceptional athletes come out of there, basketball, football. Most recently, Derek Carr for the Raiders,
Yeah,
which is my team, and unfortunately, we're not playing for the Super Bowl, but we'll be there soon.
that's the hope. I mean, I'm a Giants fan, so you're better than me. You know,
Well, you guys have won recent
yeah,
than
but
we
even
have.
then,
So
it's going to be long in the tooth for that one because it's been 10 years, since that second one.
yeah, but you guys have the market, so you guys have the
Yeah,
upper hand
it's
on this,
true.
and something's going to happen soon.
I hope so. I hope so. I mean, the NFL needs the Raiders to be good and the Giants too. So you went to Boise State in Idaho, great program. So from going to California, generally warm climate, to the Midwest in Idaho, which is not so warm, generally colder. How much of a culture shock was that, if any, culture shock at all for you?
Well, it wasn't the weather, but I was adapt because my father was a city councilman at the time. I don't have that story of a single parent, um, not educated, not cool to deal with certain situations. But anytime you leave a comfort zone, what you're used to, you're going to have a little bit of culture shock. But what my focus was, and what my dad always instilled in me was, there's a chance for you to get education. And you'll be the first child to get your degree. And so my focus wasn't on basketball. It was to not give my parents a bad name, not disrespect them, and go there and get education. And when I went to Boise State, I saw the opportunity to do something special that's never been done at that school before, and that was to make it to the NCAA tournament and to also put the child's name, stamp it on that university. And I was able to do that. But I didn't do it by myself. I did it with the help of my family. I did it with the help of the Boise State community. And I did it with the help of the coaches at the university and all the teachers, the professors, uh, the groundskeepers. It was a community of people that encouraged me to be better than I was the day before. So I owe everything to Boise State.
Let's peel it back a bit. And we're talking with former New York Knicks point guard, as well as former Toronto Raptors and New Jersey Nets point guard, Chris Childs. And that is, where the interest began initially, even though it wasn't your main focus. Obviously, as you just said, it was making your parents proud of what you were able to do, and giving them a good name and not disrespecting them. The interest itself, and not just basketball, but sports as a whole, does that go all the way back to boyhood, as it does for most of us, or was it something else?
Well, growing up in Bakersfield, I had two older brothers, three sisters, and I was a better baseball player.
Mm.
Basketball wasn't my sport. I was a baseball player. But growing up in inner city, you have people in the community that, when you have a brother like I had that went to Oregon State, was the best player in California, not just in Bakersfield. He was the best player in California. And so that was that comparable nature that you're not better than your brother. And so my mentality is if you tell me that I'm not better, then I'm going to work harder. I wasn't the highest jumper. I wasn't the fastest. I wasn't the strongest. But one thing that my father always taught me was that they can never outwork you. You
Right.
control that. You can't control the other narratives, but you can control that. So I took that into everything that I've ever done in life is that I will outwork you and I will make my opportunity. I don't want you to give me anything. Nothing. I don't want you to give me anything. And so I worked my tail off to this day. I do the same thing with the kids that I train, the kids that I mentor, the kids that I teach to be better. And one thing my father always taught me is that when you walk out this house, you're auditioning for somebody. Somebody's watching. So be the best version of yourself. And so I carry that with me when I was finally got my opportunity to play the game of basketball at the highest level, and that's the NBA.
There's an alternate universe, probably you mentioning baseball. I'm a huge baseball fan, huge Yankee fan, where you're probably playing shortstop or third base next to Barry Larkin, or you're in the outfield next to Ricky Henderson or something like that. And I can picture that, you know. And plus, in California, you got to. The thing about California that should be noted is you guys have so many different sports teams out there because of the large cities. You know, you could have been the A's, the Padres, who knows?
Yeah, but you know what's ironic and crazy? I'm a Yankee fan,
Really? Okay.
and yeah, I've been a Yankee fan because my uncle lived in Philly. And so when I got to and I know he doesn't mind me speaking on this. When I was with the Knicks, I was struggling. You know, I had a month that I was trying to figure out why why am I not being the player that I've been before coming into the 90, I think it was 97 season. And Derek Jeter got a hold of me and said, look, come to dinner, let's go hang out. And he sat down, and I'm older at that time. He said, Chris, just be you. Just be you. And this is Derek Jeter,
Right.
right? And we talked. We didn't talk sports. We talked about representing our families. Represent your family and do what you know how to do that you were born to do every day. And he helped me get through a stage in my career when I got booed for a month because I missed a shot against the Bulls. I didn't fully understand that playing in New Jersey.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The media, the mecca of playing in New York is different. So when I got to New York, I didn't understand. I hit a winning shot against one team and I missed a winning shot against the Bulls. And Derek Jeter helped me with that and said, and I can't remember, we were somewhere in Soho. And I don't know if Derek watches, but I remember it. I met him at a restaurant. We went to a club and we sat there and talked for about 2 hours. And he said, Chris, be the best version of yourself. Don't forget who you are. You know, you're one of the best players in the world. I don't care if you're the 15th man, the 10th man, you're on IR, you're one of the best in the world. So just remember that. And that helped me go, I think it was 97, 98. I went through a month slump. So it's ironic what you come in contact with this sport that we choose to play. But he helped me so much, and I owe a lot to him. And I'm a Raiders fan. I'm a Yankee fan, and
I mean,
they give me so much stuff, man. It's incredible.
man, I love the Yankees too, and that was Jeter's thing. You know, he was so calm under pressure; it didn't phase him. You know, whereas with and A Rod didn't learn this until later in 2009. The thing about A Rod is he had so much talent, but as you know, as an athlete, sometimes athletes could overthink things so much they psych themselves out and they don't do the best that they can in those situations. And that was before 2009. That was his problem all the time. He'd get too amped up to where he couldn't focus and he was trying to do too much. Sometimes keeping it simple, as you know, as we'll talk about throughout the show, is the best way to go.
Well, everybody can't play in New York.
Yeah, that's true.
Everybody can't play in New York.
That's
You
fact.
can. It's over history. It's been known that everybody can't play in New York. One thing I learned was that you can't please everybody. but you have to please the masses, and that's the fans.
Hmm.
It's not the media, it's the fans. Because if the fans don't believe in you, the media never believe in you. And what Derek and I talked about that night was you're a man first and foremost. The sport that we chose to play is not who we are. You know what I mean? So if
That's a good point.
you carry that weight of I'm this basketball player, I'm this bit. No, that's our job. That's not who we are. So as long as you stay in tune to who you are as a person, you'll persevere. And I remember Chuck Knobloch that played for the Yankees at second base. He couldn't throw the ball to first base or second base.
Yeah, he had the
And
yips.
I never got a chance to meet him, but I wish I would have met him because all I would have told him is ABC. ABC. You do your ABC, start with ABC. If you try to go to DEF before the A, you're not going to win. So Derek helped me, and he doesn't even know this. He helped me so much tremendously, along with Charles Oakley, my good friend.
Chuck Knobloch is a name I haven't heard in a while. But I'll tell you one thing, even though his defense was shot, he was clutch in the playoffs. That man hit a lot of big home runs for the Yankees in the late 90s during that dynasty.
Listen, Chuck Knobloch is one of my favorite baseball players as a Yankee.
Yeah.
He kept rallies going, where there was bunting, sack. See, what happens in the game of baseball, more so in basketball, is that you have to sacrifice for the better good. And Chuck did that. But what happened was he let the media come into his thought process of playing a game of baseball. And that's when he had the yips and couldn't throw the ball here and there. And I don't know if they had somebody, well, they had Bernie there at the time. So he had veterans.
Yeah, Paul
But he
O'Neill.
did, I'm sorry,
Yeah, Paul O'Neill was there too.
Paul O'Neill, but they didn't play the infield. They played the outfield.
That's true.
So there's difference. So if he'd had a Willie Randolph, come on, man.
Yeah,
It'd be a different story.
for sure. Chris Childs is our guest tonight here in the Mike Danaven podcast. Of course, former point guard, spent 9 seasons in the NBA, played professionally 14 seasons in total, which brings us to this 1989. You talked about just now perseverance.
Your voice is echoing.
Oh, really? I can't hear it on. How do I sound now? Better?
Say it again.
How do I sound now? Better?
Like a robot.
Let's try that again here. How about now?
I can hear you.
All right, there we go. So that brings us to 1989. You were talking about perseverance.
No, it's bad.
Let me unplug the headphones, then we'll do it like this. Does this sound better? Can you hear me?
Yeah, but it's real staticky and echoing.
Sorry about that. I don't know what's going on. But that brings us to 1989,
Better.
and you talked about just now perseverance. You didn't get drafted in '89, but you didn't let that stop you, and you went out to the CBA. When weighing your options, how did you come upon the decision to ultimately go out to the Continental Basketball Association?
Well, this was in '89. I was in Sports Illustrated in '88. One of the best guards in the West, Gary Payton, Danny Bros, and Rod Strickland, all these guys that I played against. When you're coming from a small school, you don't have leeway to make mistakes with your character, right? And so when you go to a smaller school, you don't have the mistakes that a North Carolina Duke has. And so when you get rumors put out there about you, when you're dealing with a Fortune 500 company, then they're not going to take a chance on you. So I didn't get drafted. I'm gonna be honest with you. I was heartbroken. I cried. My father, I had a draft party and everything, and my kids were there at the time. Let me see, '89. I think my son was 3, and my little girl was maybe a year. So they didn't really fully understand. But my dad said, "Give him a minute." And then he came in the room and he said, "What are you going to do now? What are you going to do? You going to quit? Because if you start quitting now, you'll quit for the rest of your life." And so I wiped the tears and I went in the gym. And then when they said the CBA, I never understood what the CBA meant or what it was. But once I got there, I went to I think it was Rapid City, South Dakota. I got drafted by them. They had veterans. Coach Musselman wouldn't play me, and then he traded me to La Crosse, Wisconsin. Another veteran coach, but I really love Flip Saunders. He was there at La Crosse. He cut me. He had veterans team. Then I went to Rockford, Illinois, played good. They cut me. Then I had the opportunity to go back home to Bakersfield, the Bakersfield Jam. I wasn't fully ready because as a point guard, okay, you have to have the respect of men. You have to know how to run a team. You know how to cater to certain players. I didn't know how to do that because coming out of college, I was the man. So when you're dealing with men, it's not about you, it's about them. It's about us. It's about we. And so I wasn't capable of understanding what that meant. So that was trial by error. Then I finally had the opportunity to go to Des Moines, Iowa, and play for an owner named Ann DeLong in the CBA and Dan Panaggio. And that changed my life. That changed my basketball career because they didn't talk to me about basketball. They talked to me about life. And that was a eye-opening of who do I want to be? How do I get there? And for me to get there, I had to lock myself in the gym for 4 months. Back home with a friend named Jose Wesley in Bakersfield, California, local Martin Luther King gym. He would open the gym for me in the mornings. I would spend the night. I ate sardines, I ate crackers, I ate water. And he said, only thing I ask you to do is at 7 o'clock, I need you to sweep the gym, put the broom up, put the cot up so they didn't know you slept here. And then you can do this every day. And that changed my life because if it wasn't for somebody that cared about me as a person, you would have never met the basketball player, Chris Childs. And so I learned how to orchestrate and run a basketball team that I didn't know in '89 that that's what the NBA was looking for. I got my shot with the Nets. We won a championship in Quad City. Willis Reed called me, gave me a partial guarantee contract. It was, I remember like it was just $75,000. So I was playing with Kenny Anderson, Derek Coleman, Chris Morris, Dwayne Cinches, Rex Walters, Chris Morris, Benoit Benjamin, Jason Williams, Armand Gilliam, played under Butch Beard, Paul Silas, Stan Albeck. All these men helped me to be who I am today. And I owe them everything, man. And I bust my tail. I was in the gym every day, all day. I didn't hang out. You know, you're in Jersey, in New York. I'm living in Hackensack, New Jersey, Secaucus, New Jersey, you know, $75,000, you know, when all these guys are making $10 million. And I told Ken, and we call him Chibs. Everybody else called him Kenny Anderson. He'll vouch. I said, Kenny, if you're not ready to practice, don't come into the gym guarding me because I have to make a living for my children. Because at that time I had 2 kids and a third on the way. So, you know, oh, I'm sorry. I got to name one more guy.
It's fine.
Shoot. Clifford Ray, Jerry Eves for the Nets.
Was Kerry Jones there?
No, Kerry. I played with Kerry My second go around.
Okay.
This was in 93, 94, 95. 94, 95. Um, I'm missing one other teammate of mine, but all those guys know me. We still talk to this day. That they had an imprint on my career because of how I approached the game. I wasn't the strongest. I wasn't the fastest. I wasn't the best shooter. I was the highest jumper. But you would not outwork me.
Right.
Nobody. No, nobody on that team or in the league would not outwork me. So it was a struggle, but it was so gratifying because that's what I was brought up with.
And in 1995, 1996, you had to that point the best year of your career, even though those Nets teams, this is obviously way before Jason Kidd and Kenyon Martin and Keith
Right.
Van Horn and all those contributors that made those teams in the early 2000s, very good, of which you were a part of, as we'll get to later. But nonetheless, for a team at that point that was struggling, it's the experiences you talked about that helped you, not necessarily the numbers. You'd rather be a playoff team, but it's all part of the development. And 95, 96 was really your breakout. So that leads us into that summer. You'd been in the Jersey, New York area for a couple of years by that point. You were well versed in playing the Knicks. And this is a team that's only 2 years removed from being in the NBA Finals and going to Game 7 against the Rockets. Ewing's there, John Starks, you mentioned Oakley. And that summer was really a shift because that was kind of the beginning of the shift into the latter half of the 90s under Van Gundy. LJ gets there that summer, Larry Johnson, Allen Houston gets there that summer, and
Right.
you get there that summer. So, about signing with the Knicks, how did that opportunity come about? Was it them calling you after watching you up close and personal in Jersey, saying, "Hey, we think you could fit this team, fit us here," and to go from Jersey to the Mecca, as you said earlier? Take me through that summer.
Well, that summer, and I have to go back a little bit. 1993, I think it was 92. Derek Harper was my tutor. I tried out with Dallas when I came out of college, and Derek taught me how to be a pro. He taught me how to play defense in the NBA. He taught me how to run a ball club. And when I tried out with Dallas, they drafted, at the time, Steve Alford. I think it was 93, 92, not sure. And I was on that team, and I had the most assists during the preseason. I outplayed every point guard,
Right.
but I didn't know the politics. And so John McLeod was the coach, and I got cut. They cut me. And so John McLeod called me in my room, and he said, "I need you to come downstairs." I said, "What do I need to come downstairs for? You cut me. Well, I don't want to talk to you." And so that was the immaturity of me, and not knowing that this man would speak highly of me to other teams. He thought highly of me to keep me for the whole preseason and then cut me at the end. I owed him and that franchise to go down there and talk, not do them a disservice. And I didn't do that because I was immature. And so when I got cut and didn't talk to John, I had to go back to the CBA. I think it was like 2 more years. And so when I got the opportunity, then I went to New Jersey, and seeing how the business of the NBA is different now
Mm-hmm.
than it was back then, because you have people that can play the game. Everybody can play. I'm no better than a guy you might see that on YouTube or whatever that never gets an opportunity. But you have to fit in to a system. You have to be a piece of the puzzle. And once I learned how to be the piece of a puzzle, then in 95, 96, when I got the opportunity, I was prepared. 89, I wasn't prepared.
Right.
I would have loved to come out of college, play against Isaiah, Kevin Johnson, uh, Joe Dumars, who in both of those guys, Isaiah and Joe Dumars, had a great impact on my career as a basketball player because we are all they're 6'1" and 6'2", 6'3". I'm 6'3", so I watched those guys play the game. John Starks was already in the league, but I knew John. I saw how he competed, so it was all about competing, not backing down from anybody, and going out there and being the best version of yourself every day, not just in games, but in practice.
And 96, 97, you walked into quite a rivalry, as we'll get to in a moment, with the Miami Heat. But I say this because even though, listen, I'm a diehard Knicks fan, it's part of the reason why you're here. Even though I was too young, I was born in 2000, so I missed that whole era. But I love going back now. We got the archive that is YouTube, and going back and watching these old games and learning the history of the great players that came before and learning the history of the great teams that came before. Besides the team that made the finals in 94, I think the 96 97 Knicks was the most talented roster of that decade because you had everybody. Like Pat was a little older, but he was still in his prime. This was before the wrist injury. Oak was still there. Like I said, LJ, that was his first year. That's Allen Houston's first year there. Ward's there. You're there. And you guys went 57 and 25. And you were a 3 seed. And that was a great Eastern Conference that year. The 8 seed was the Bullets. They had 44 wins. That was a solid conference. You were right behind Miami that had 61 wins. The Bulls had 69. And you go into the playoffs. You play a really good Hornets team with Vlade Divac and Glenn Rice and Anthony Mason, who got traded for LJ, the former Knick, who's not with us anymore, sadly.
Rest in peace.
Yep, and you guys swept them. It was best of 5 back then. And then you get to Miami. Now, I want to go back for a second because for those of you that don't know in the chat that are watching, if you have a question for Chris, please submit it and I'll make sure he sees it. The Miami Heat, that rivalry started because, to give you a backstory, Pat Riley used to coach the Knicks. He used to coach the Knicks from 1991 to 1995, had great success with the Lakers in the 80s, won a championship there as a player as well. And he came to the Knicks and he turned the Knicks into the powerhouse that they would become that decade. He wanted more control in 1995. Ownership didn't give that to him. So he said, I'm going to leave. And he bolted to Miami and basically built a mirror image of you guys. He found his own Georgetown big man in Alonzo Mourning. He got Tim Hardaway there, PJ Brown, and he built a great squad. They were just like you with the great defense, and you matched up in the semis. So before we get to the playoff series itself, that regular season going up against them, and you walked right into that. That was your first year there. What were your personal feelings towards the Miami Heat? Because that was a nasty rivalry.
Well, people always ask me when I got to the Knicks, did you change your game, your style of play? I didn't have to. I was 5 years in the CBA, so I was always hungry. I played the game the same way. If you watch my career through college, CBA, if you go back to high school, I play the same game. And it's so interesting you bring it up. When I got there, myself, Allen, and LJ, our press conference, and then we got done with the media. Us three sat in a room, and I asked them, I said, what do you guys want to accomplish? Because at that time, I'm 25. I'm not a 19-year-old.
Right.
I spent 5 years at CBA, so I'm a veteran. And I asked them, what do you want to accomplish? And they said, we want to win. I said, well, how do you get there? And I wanted their answer because as a point guard, I'm going to tell you what you need to do to get there. And so I remember, I think Larry said, I don't care what I do. And you see Larry's career once he got to the Knicks, he sacrificed so much. Mm-hmm. Told Allen, I said, you have to be the man. You have to give us 24 a night, every night. Yeah. I don't care how you get it. You have to get it every night. And so going into that season, along with Patrick, we sat down, we went out to dinner, and Patrick was hesitant because he was the veteran, the guy, the franchise of the team, and it was hard. But he saw the talent that we had. When we got we already knew we had swept the Bulls, we swept the Hornets, And I remember this like it was yesterday. We played the Hornets. And I think that year, Glenn was with us a year before Rice, but he got traded to the Hornets. And now he's a Hornet. So the old garden, there's the tunnel, right?
Mhm.
And so I'm the hype man for the Knicks at the time. So we come out to DMX where my dog's at. You know, we barking, we getting ready to go to war. And I walked out first through the tunnel and I heard the Hornets singing R. Kelly, I Believe I Can Fly. And I looked back at my guys and said, they're already beat. They're already beat. No, I'm serious. They're already beat. I Believe I Can Fly with an orchestra. No, we're getting ready to destroy you. And we swept them. And once we did that, we knew we were going to beat the Heat. We swept the Bulls. We were 3-1 against the Heat. We're going to beat them. And then the rule of if your big toe goes over the line, when there's an altercation, you get suspended. And so we got 5 guys suspended. I think they had 1 or 2.
It's only PJ Brown, one. PJ's the only one on the Heat that got suspended.
I thought didn't Eric Murdoch get suspended?
Well, maybe he did too, but I know the main catalyst on that team,
Yeah,
the only guy that missed time is PJ.
And so the first game, we were up 3-1. So game 5 was we were still shell shocked. Game 6, game 5, game 6, game 7. And I told Jeff, I said, Jeff, we got guys suspended. I think I had 16 or 17 in the first half. And I already knew I had Tim at the time because I know he wasn't the same Tim Hardaway at Golden State.
Right. He was different.
Yeah, he was different because I think he had nerve damage in his leg. And I said, Jeff, just don't call, I got this. Don't call no plays. Just let me run this team. We will beat them. And I think it was game 6. Herb Williams played. I think we had LJ, not Patrick. I can't remember. It was vice versa. But I'll take this to my grave. There's an asterisk by that Bulls championship because I feel in my heart we would have beat them because we were so deep. We was 10 deep.
Yep.
But it didn't happen in our favor. And a lot of people might say, well, the Bulls team was this and that. And they were great. Yeah. But we were great, too, in our own way. And they didn't like seeing us because if we didn't beat you, we would beat you up.
Right. That was the rule back then. That was the way you guys
played. That's what it was.
Exactly. That was that's the golden era. And I'm not disrespecting now. Listen, now it's fine. We got our stars too, but it's not the same. You breathe on a guy now, it's a foul. But back then, I mean, that with that team, I agree because you were 3-1 against him that year. There was the one game that Jordan had 51, but even then, he only beat you by a point. It was 88-87 that game. It wasn't like the Bulls blew the Knicks out in that particular game. You were up 3-1 on Miami. You were going to the game. They were already winning that game 5, but I have full confidence that had it been a full strength team, you guys would have went back to the Garden and closed them out in 6 for sure. Yeah, because let's not forget also 98, the next year, the Bulls went 7 with the Pacers. And I'm not disrespecting the Pacers. We'll get into that rivalry in a second too. But Rick Smits was a lot older by then. Reggie was a lot older by then. Mark Jackson was a lot older by then. If those guys could take the Bulls 7, I have no doubt in my heart the 96, 97 Knicks could have done the same, if not beaten them all together.
Well, that year, the Bulls were older.
Yep.
All right. The Pacers were older, and the Pacers were a tough team. I know Dale very well. I know Antonio very, very well because I ended up playing with him in Toronto. And so I know his character. I know his grit and who he is as a man. But we had young legs. We had Spree, Camp. We were strong. And them going to 7 games was in our favor. was in our favor. But what happens in the game of basketball is that when you play in New York, there's distractions. All right, there's a lot of distractions.
Right.
And what my father, same thing. My father's a city councilman, and when you start talking to the media, all right, you can't get full of yourself and think that you can outsmart them. They went to school for that. So when you start giving them bulletin material to,
Bulletin board material.
yeah, bulletin board material, the least you say, the least they can write. So we started giving bulletin board material, and it backfired on us because we're talking about what we did, but it's a new season. It starts over. Patrick got hurt, and that hurt us because Patrick wasn't the same. If we had a 28-year-old Patrick instead of a 33-year-old Patrick, we would have won 2 championships. It's just the cards that we were dealt. But we had some warriors. LJ was hurt with his back. Charlie was hurt. Allen had ankle. So it was a lot going on, but everybody's hurt that time of year. I don't make any excuses. The other teams were better than us that day, so I chalk it up as that.
And that, that leads into that 97-98 season. So there was the 57-25 year. The Bulls end up closing the Heat out in 5. And they go on.
We would have beat them in 5.
I listen. I think so. Michael might disagree, but that's fine. That Knicks team.
I told Michael to his face we would have beat them in 5.
And what did he say?
I can't say it on.
Well, never mind. Tell me off the air.
Yeah,
tell me off the air.
Yeah, I'll tell you off the air.
All right, that's fine. So, but so they end up beating Utah the first time in 6. That's the infamous series, as you saw in The Last Dance. He had the flu game. It wasn't really the flu game. He had food poisoning, as it turned out, from a bad pizza, which is hilarious. But it led to one of the more iconic performances that the sport has seen.
Who eats pizza in Salt Lake City?
Exactly. That's when I saw that in The Last Dance, that's exactly what I said. But hey, that's what
it is what it is.
It is what it is. So you guys went 43-39 in 97-98 because Pat hurt his wrist trying to dunk in Milwaukee, right, and he fell. And he was never the same after that, as you said, unfortunately. And you get into that first round, and Miami's there again. The 2 seed against the 7 seed. Now, you guys aren't any other 7 seed because, like you said, you guys were banged up throughout that year at full strength. That's not a 7 seed. Same thing the next year with the 8 seed in 99, as we'll talk about momentarily. Now, before I get to game 4 and the fight, we're going to talk about that in a moment. Just listen, you don't like these guys. You still got a bad taste in your mouth from 97, understandably. But you got to focus because if you start trying to do too much, like we talked about earlier, then you're going to start making bad mistakes on the court and you're going to lose. So in the locker room, you being the point guard, you being the floor general, what were you trying to tell these guys as if to say, listen, I know we don't like them. I know we got to beat them, but we can't stray from the path and what we do best.
It's not about them. It's about us. It's never about the opposing team. If you're not able to play your game, you make other team adjust to you. You don't adjust to them. We know each other. We play the same brand of basketball. It's not about anything other than the guys that are here in this locker room. Let's go out there and get it done. And I remember when we were warming up, and in Miami, they have little clickers where they make a lot of noise. And I looked at the guys. And one thing I've always done is when we're warming up and then we go out there to shoot, I'm usually a rebounder and I'm passing the ball to guys to shoot. I'm looking at the guy's eyes to see if he's really concentrating on the basket or he's concentrating on the people, right? And we were laser focused. I was like, we got this. All we got to do is stick to what we do. We're going to get bad calls. Who cares? Nobody cares. Nobody on TV, nobody in the audience, nobody at the scoreboard, nobody cares because bad calls happens in the game of sports because it's controlled by a man, not computers. So can we persevere? And we did that. And then it happened. We lost focus. I can chalk it up to that. Now, Charlie's up the street in Tallahassee. And we talk about it all the time. We talk to kids, mentor them, and talking about the game of basketball. If you lose focus for a second in the NBA, you're going to lose. And so I saw us lose focus. I saw the bench players waiting to come in lose focus. You're not allowed, you can't do that because you have to concentrate. 82 games for regular season. Back then, if you made it and won the finals, that's 115 games. You have to concentrate for 115. Is it possible? No. But you have to put your mind on 115 games, and Miami was able to do that better than us. It is what it is.
You guys were down 2-1. Like I said earlier, back then the first round, they should really do this because sometimes it really overextends the guys. Now the first rounds back then, the playoffs used to be a best of 5, kind of like it is in baseball, the ALDS,
Right.
and that changed after 2002. And you guys were down 2-1 heading into the Garden in Game 4, and that's do or die. You lose, you're out. And for context for my listeners, for if you don't follow basketball, every series that the Knicks and the Heat played from 1997 through 2000, they played each other 4 straight years in the playoffs, went the distance. It either went the full 5 or it went the full 7 in round 1 or 2. And you guys are up. You're going to close out that game. I think Starks got fouled. He went to the line. And then you turn around, and there's chaos at the other end of the floor with LJ and Alonzo swinging at each other, throwing hands. When you saw that, I mean, everybody knows the Jeff Van Gundy perspective and Mary Johnson and Mourning, but for you, take me through that fight from your angle.
Well, I was on the court at the time, and I don't remember how it started, but I knew the history between those two. And if there was anything that was on the cuffs, it was going to explode. LJ Oak, Charles Oakley, and myself, we were road dogs. So we used to check into the hotel together, go to the room, play dominoes. So we knew each other very well. I never expect that in a million years. Because I know LJ. I know he's calm. He's all about team. So I don't know what happened for him to feel like it had to be that at that particular time. So when it occurred, all I saw was Jeff come in, and I was like, I can't let my coach get, because everybody went for either Alonzo or LJ. Nobody went for Jeff. So that's my coach. Let me get in there. Because I don't, I'm crazy anyway. I don't care. So I'm like, all right, let me go in there and get him because all I want is Tim to touch me, and I'm a deck him. But he would never do it. So I'm in there reaching for Jeff, and I'm like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. And Jeff is holding on to Alonzo, and Alonzo's looking down. Alonzo's a big guy.
Yeah.
And he hurt you on the court. I'm like, I have 4 false teeth in my mouth from 2 Georgetown guys. That's Dikembe and Alonzo. And I'm like, okay, let me dip and get Jeff. But Jeff was holding on so tight because he loves Patrick so much and LJ so much. Those are he won't say it, but those are his favorites. I'll say it. LJ, Patrick Ewing is Jeff's favorites. And so he was holding on so tight, and Jeff had to look up at me to realize it was me and not the Heat player pulling him off. And so at that time, I can't remember who it was. They kept the bench back. And I remember Charlie said, Charlie's voice is so high pitched. He's like, no, Jeff, no. And so I'm like, what? I'm sorry. I go back, and it was tough, man. That cost us. That cost the city of New York the championship that year.
Yeah.
We would have won it, guaranteed.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
yeah,
And that, but it turned out differently because they were missing Mourning for Game 5 back in Miami, and you guys went back and blew them out 98-81 and
right.
moved on to round two. And this is where it gets interesting because within this time where you're at each other's throats, New York and Miami, there comes the second chapter of Indiana in New York because 98 through 2000, you guys played each other 3 straight times. Now, this is
Correct.
before Oak got traded. This is 97-98 is Oak's last year in New York. It's Stark's last year too, because those guys ended up getting traded that summer for Camby and Sprewell, respectively. But you play the Pacers in round two. They were there for 93, 94, 95. So they know Pat was there for that first leg of the rivalry too. And it's still now it's ramping up again. And we know Reggie's history in New York, and we know the guys they got over there. You mentioned the Davis brothers, Dale and Antonio, the Duncan Dutchman, Rick Smits, Mark Jackson, New York guy. He's there. What were they telling you about this rivalry, and what was your mentality heading into this series against, listen, a tough opponent? They were no joke back then.
Well, if you really think about it, them on paper, they were a better team. They were deeper.
Yeah.
They were deeper than us at every position. Um, they had LaSalle Thompson, a veteran.
Mm-hmm.
They had McLeod. Uh, I don't know if Jalen was on that
He
team.
was.
Yeah,
He was there.
They had Jalen. They still had Byron Scott.
Yep.
Um,
Chris Mullen was there.
Chris Mullins. They had what's the Mitchell that coached the Timberwolves. They had him.
Sam
So they had
Mitchell.
veterans along with rookie. They had Travis Best, who was a handful. Um, all we knew is that we had to be on our best game. And one thing that I told Jeff, I told Tibbs, I said, please don't double team against Mark. Don't double team. If you double team, he's going to kill us. Because they had so many shooters. They had Mullins and Reggie. They're going to kill us. And I think they beat us the first game, but we adjusted. And once we took the double team away, it discombobulated them because we already knew that Mark was going to back up and try to back us down and post up. And when Reggie came off the picks, we double teamed Reggie. We took the ball out of his hands, and so it was a chess match. They were better than us on paper. They were better than us, but I think the one advantage that we had, that we always had against Indiana the years that I was there, is that we had multiple guys that we can throw at Reggie. I knew Reggie back in California, working out at UCLA. I knew he liked to talk. I knew he liked to touch you and grab you and push you. And one thing you have to do with a guy like Reggie, who he's not built, weight wise, and he wants to put his hands on you and push you and he wants to get to the free throw line. One thing you have to do is put your hands up. I'm not touching him. Show the refs that you're not holding him and let him run, but you keep him going one way. If you let Reggie be a wide receiver on the basketball court, then he's going to win because he's that good. He's that dominant, and he's that smart. And if you watch the game of basketball now, and you watch when they do the analysis, he's one of the best. He's one of the best in the game to break down the game from A, B, C, D, E, and F of the NBA. Because to be an NBA player, you can't just have an A, B, C. You have to have E, F, G, H. And he breaks the game down so well, and I enjoy watching him because he teaches me a lot that I can transfer it to my kids, and I enjoy playing Reggie. I loved him. I love his competitiveness. I loved him being the villain, and he's in my top 5 shooters of all time.
Yeah, I think most people. He should be. He absolutely should be.
But a lot of people don't have him in the top 5.
think that's, you know what it is. I think that's just hating, because it's kind of like, and I was talking about this with a couple of buddies of mine off there. When some people don't like him as an analyst, and because they don't like him as an analyst, they forget how great a player he was. It's the same problem with Paul Pierce. You can disagree with how a guy views the game and may not agree with his opinions on the game, but you can't take away from what he contributed, because people are doing the same thing with him. People forget how much of a killer Paul Pierce was in his prime. And I'm a Knicks fan. I hated watching him on the Celtics because he always killed the Knicks, as you know.
Right.
So sometimes, because you may not agree with the guy of how he views the game, from a different position off the court, you can underrate him and what he contributed on it. Because do I care for Reggie Miller? No, he killed my team for years. But I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's not one of the best to ever do it.
No, he's. I mean, as an analyst, I think he's great. Paul Pierce was something different. He's the new era.
Yeah.
But listen to Reggie break down the game, and nothing against the other guys. I have nothing against, but Reggie. If you are a basketball enthusiast, Reggie simplifies the game, and that's how he played. I'm going to come off the screen. As soon as I catch it, I'm going to turn square up and shoot it in your face. That's what he did. He's going to get to the lane, float. He's going to flop. Reggie Miller, top 10, top 5 best shooters ever.
Yep.
Top 5 shooters ever.
Yep.
I knew when I guarded him, I was going to get on his hip and force him one way. If you allow him to play you like a joystick and take you different ways, then you're done. But Reggie was great. I loved it. And John will tell you the same thing. We talked about this 2 weeks ago, John and I, because John guarded him first. 3 years before I even got there, he was like, man, I couldn't sleep. I hated guarding Reggie more than he did Michael. We know Michael wants to get to 17. See, Michael was easier to guard than Reggie, because Michael, if you let Michael get to 15, you're cooked. But if you can push him to 17, you're good. Reggie doesn't matter, because Reggie can shoot from 6, 8, 10, 12, 15, 17, 19, 22. He has too many options. See, people don't understand that, and they think you're crazy. But I'm telling you, as a defender,
right,
I had a harder time guarding Reggie than I did Mike.
And I'll never forget, there was a sequence, and this is on the cover of the New York Daily News, where game 4 of the semis, that the Pacers beat the Knicks in overtime. The reason why I went to overtime is because he hit a clutch 3. And you could see, because Puff Daddy was on the sidelines, courtside. As soon as Reggie got the ball, Puff Daddy just put his hands on his head. You could see him mouthing.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Because he knew it was going in. And that was just what he did, not just to the Knicks, but to a lot of teams. The guy was a top performer in top spot. So moving ahead, I appreciate you being here. We're talking with Chris Childs here in the Mike and David podcast. I don't want to keep you too long. That summer, that was an interesting summer in '98 because there was change. Starks gets traded to Golden State, and that brings Latrell. And Latrell's coming off his own controversy, so this is a chance for him in a new environment to kind of find himself again, not just as a player, but as a person too. And then Oakley gets traded out to Toronto for Marcus Camby. So you get young legs again. And I think that team on paper is a 50-win team. But the problem is we had a lockout. So here we are right off the end of the Bulls dynasty. They break up. Everybody knew they were breaking up, and they do. Now, here we are with a new roster with so much potential and talent, and they can't take the court because of that lockout. So for you during that summer,
is this live?
Yeah.
So I can't take 30-second break.
Take a 30-second break. I'll cover you.
All right, give me a minute.
No problem. We're talking with Chris Childs here on the Mike and Maven podcast. Let me shout out some people in the live chat. My sister's here, Jolene Michelle, of course. Thank you for being here. Michelina Sereno. Angela Ang is here as well. Yeah, I will work on the angles. I don't have much options here, as you can see. I see your comments. I saw them about the angle. I'm sorry. I don't. There's not much I could do. But I'll work on it. I'll do the best I can. I'm kind of in a bandbox here, but, I was joking with Mark DeMeo. I feel like a mime, but it is what it is. I can only I'm just a man. But anyway, appreciate you guys being here. It's a Friday night, and I'm doing the Mike the Native podcast, and it's 10 o'clock. Do you, do you know where your children are? My sister says we'll work on it. I'm sure we will. You know, but I can't afford a studio. You know, I'll have to look and see if there's any ones that'll let me. I'll walk into the studio and be like, I have $3. Um, you know, Angela Ang, we all have to work with what we have. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And she is. I appreciate Angela. Angela's good people. I don't have the lighting that I do without Angela and Joe Murray, by the way. So, Angela, appreciate you, my friend. Um, but in the meantime, hey, Joe Murray, how you doing? Good to see you. But yeah, Chris Childs is our guest, former Knicks point guard. And coming up on the Mike Naven podcast, Miles' son will be here Monday, former federal agent, worked U.S. Customs in Miami, and February 8th, 2 shows in one day. I'll touch on that a little bit later. We got one at 12:30 that day and one at 7 o'clock. So 2 shows in one day this Tuesday. We're busy. We're busy. And we got a show next Friday, too. So I did 4 shows this week. This is the 4th. And now I'm getting ready to do 4 more next week. So Chris Childs is back. And
Yeah,
as we were talking about,
I had to go check on my dogs.
no problem. No problem. I was just talking to my friends in the live chat here. And like I said, if you have a question for Chris, make sure you type it in and I'll make sure he sees it. So during that summer, as all this bureaucracy nonsense is being sorted out, kind of like now with the baseball lockout, how did you keep yourself focused?
You're talking about when John got traded and Patrick.
That lockout summer in '98.
Yeah, it was tough because John and I became close. We come from the same cloth of how we got to the league. He was bagging groceries when he got called up. I was in the CBA, so we golfed together. Him, myself, Allen, and Herb Williams. We were tight, so that's when I knew that's when I figured out the business side of basketball. I remember going to Ernie Grunfeld's office, and I'm pissed and I'm mad. And Ernie said, "Chris, this is just part of life. You know, we have to do things different." And then, you know, not knowing Sprewell, I knew Camby coming in was very athletic. I think, did Patrick go to Seattle that year?
That was 2000. This was before he
Okay,
was still.
so Patrick was still there. He got hurt. So it was John and Oak, and Oak is my best friend on the team and to this day. So I think it hit me the hardest. If you look at that season and stat-wise, it took me a while to get going. I think that year I went to Jeff's office, and he asked me, he said, "I think you'll be better coming off the bench, you know, playing with the second unit." But there was just a lot going on that year, and we didn't get off to a good start at all. We got off to a horrible start because we got new guys coming in, understanding that the dynamic of the team and the offense is going to be different because Patrick wasn't the focal point anymore. It was Spree and Allen. And LJ was still there. So we had to figure that stuff out, man. It was tough because we fought in practice. I'm talking about fisticuffs. Even Charlie. It was just a very turbulent season, turbulent time in everybody's career. But the mainstay of everything was Jeff saying, "Just relax. We'll be okay." As you know, following the Knicks and following that era, our practices were harder than the games. The game, we look forward to the games. That was easy. But getting through a 2-hour practice was the hardest part because we fought each other. You know, everybody wanted to be the man. You know, everybody wanted to score 20. And so we had to readjust what was the most important thing, and that was winning. And I'll say this to you, and hopefully the Knicks fans and these younger guys that are playing now understand that You are playing in the city that will ride or die for you and be behind you 100%. But if you don't give your full out effort and represent that city, they won't be behind you. They won't support you. They'll boo you. So, and this is for Julius Randle. Uh, that kid, I'm so proud of him, along with being disappointed because he was so hungry when he wasn't an all-star. Now he's an all-star. He feels that he deserves. You don't deserve jack. Go out there and take what you want. Go out there and be the most dominant player you can be, because you should be. How do you go from being an all-star, not being an all-star? And look at the Eastern Conference. You're the most dominant player at that position in the Eastern Conference, because the Greek Freak is a guard forward. There's nobody at your position that can compete with you. So I'm gonna just say that, and I'll get back on topic. Um, our adjustment was to get to know each other. We didn't know what Sprewell was going to bring. We didn't know his mentality. We didn't know his attitude or what he was going to do to fit in, because he had to fit in. We didn't have to fit in with him. He had to fit into what the wearing that Knicks jersey meant. And he bought in immediately. His mentality, his aggression, his hunger was to say, I don't care about nobody on that court other than my teammate, and I'm going to dominate my position. That's what he did.
And I think the key, it doesn't matter how badly you're struggling. As long as you can get to the playoffs, your record's 0-0. Everybody's record is 0-0. Just get there. And that's the thing that you talk about Randall this year. You know, you with the play-in, you have a better shot now. Just put all that nonsense about not getting calls and trade rumors to the side. Play your game and get there. That's the key. And you guys did get there. And you played Miami again. You went the full distance again. You played Indiana again. Um, Now, to make sure we don't take up too much of your time, I won't go through the entire playoff run, but there's two plays that stick out. And there's three moments I want to ask you about, but these two first plays I'll ask you about. Allen Houston's game winner against Miami, game 5, to win that series. LJ's game winner, the 4-point play against Indiana in the conference finals, game 3. Now, we know what the emotions were on the court. You know, the clips on YouTube, we've seen it. But in the huddle, first we'll talk about Allen's floater. In the huddle, what was Van Gundy drawing up, and what did he want you specifically to do?
Well, the Miami game when Allen hit the shot, that's a play that we ran for 4 years prior. You know, the diamond, double, stagger, big men come down the screen. They run the same play in high school.
Right.
And we ran it. They knew it, but Dan Marley thought that he can get a steal, and he cheated. All it took was a half a millisecond, and he cheated. Allen got the ball, and what Easy does, and what I call him H2O, because he's water, and he got the ball and made one of the biggest shots in NBA history.
Mm-hmm.
NBA history. And we already knew we can beat Miami because we beat them before. If you look at the 4-year span that we played them, I think they might have beat us 6 games out of 20, something like that. But we knew we can beat them. And then going into Indiana, that play wasn't for LJ. They denied Spree, and the ball got tipped.
Yeah, it's true.
It got tipped. And so LJ and Antonio Davis, I love you, brother. You're my brother. I love you. That was not a foul. That was not a foul. But we're in the Garden. Things happen. LJ made a miraculous shot. That's the only picture that I have in my house of the Garden. When LJ hit that shot and the fans went crazy. That's the only picture uh, any memorabilia into my house because the energy, the roof almost came off the garden, man. I promise you. It was so electric. But me as a point guard, I didn't give a damn about the shot. My focus was the game is tied. LJ was getting ready to put up the L. I said, don't you do it. Concentrate on this free throw because the game is tied. And if you watch the tape, he calmed down. The spree coming and bumping like spree, get off me. LJ make this free throw because the game is tied. And all you can see him is woosah, and he calmed down and made the free throw. One of the greatest shots in NBA history. And I'm blessed to be a part of that. And, you know, my mindset was at that time, how did I get so lucky? Who am I? What am I? And I just go back to the work I put in and with my guys. We ran hills in San Diego, Black Beach, 5 miles with Thibodeau. We're throwing up me, Spree, Allen, LJ, Herb, uh, Michael Bradley, Charlie. I mean, I can't, right now I'm just getting so hyped, man, that's what I thought about because, you know, when you play in New York and you play in the Garden, there's expectations, you know. This is the thing that bothers me the most as a Knick. When I watch the game today, I can't watch a whole game of any game. I can't watch a whole game. I watch certain guys, but I just remember there was only one guy in my era that came in the game. He's the best ever played, and it's Michael Jordan that showed up because he had a reputation. He had a business, a company that he had to put on the forefront to say, okay, I'm the best guy here. Referees knew it, league knew it, so it was cool. Not saying it was easy, but how do you allow people to come to the arena that you represent and disrespect you? And whether it's LeBron, whether it was Kobe, and these guys are great. Don't get me wrong. All of them are great. I played against Kobe and Mike. I never played against LeBron, but I would foul out of a game before you give me 55, 30, 45, 35 points. I would foul out.
Yeah.
Or I would hurt you, not trying to hurt you or in your career, but I'm hitting you in your jaw, I'm hitting your shoulder. You're not going to embarrass me. And I know I'm getting off topic, but for my Knicks, it's time to step up, bro.
Yeah.
Represent the fans because they're going to support you no matter what. You can be a loser. You can have a losing record. But if you go out there and play the game as hard as you can, and some days the other team is going to be better than you, that's okay. But if you give up, they're not going to support you.
Right. Right. And they're waiting for a team like that. We thought we had that team last year, which is what kind of makes this year, on a side note, a little very much disappointing. In that New York, as you know, is a gritty city. There's no quit. Everybody hustles. It doesn't matter what you're going through. It doesn't matter what you
Right.
do. You keep pushing. And they just haven't pushed with that same effort as last year. And I tell you, all they got to do is not even so much as make the finals. Just make the conference finals. You know, when the Knicks were in the playoffs last year, you saw how hyped that city gets. You know, there's different factions in New York. Baseball, you got one contingent that goes for the Mets. You got one contingent that goes for the Yankees. Is split. The city, even with all that other stuff, all those other teams, they unite for the Knicks. You know, and you felt that energy, and I hope that these guys could feel that energy soon because there's nothing like playoff basketball in New York. And I'm not talking about Brooklyn. No disrespect to them. They got great players over there. I'm
It's
talking
still
about
in the city.
exactly. It's not the Garden. It's
It's
not the
not the
Garden.
Garden, it's not the city. But it doesn't even matter because Everybody wants a winner, right?
Yeah.
Everybody wants a winner, and that's fine and dandy. But New York is all about putting your hard hat on and representing and playing the game as hard as you can. This year's team is more talented than last year's team.
Yeah. I agree.
More talented. But what's occurring right now is they have no identity. And I love Tibbs. That's my guy. He has to figure out you can't have inconsistency in your identity. You can't play a different game every night.
Right.
You have to play the same game. This is what we do. We're going to defend you. We're going to score in half court. If you can control those two, you're going to win more games than you lose. And that's where they're lost. Julius Randle, brother, if you're listening, stop being an ISO player. Punish people in the paint. You're 6'8", 230. You worked out and got your body in the best shape of your life. Punish people. 25 and 10. Those are your numbers. If you don't get those, your team's not going to win consistently. And he's that great. I've watched him.
Yeah. I agree.
Easy.
I will ask you, the moment the buzzer sounded Game 6, Indiana 99,
Yes,
and the
sir.
Garden goes nuts, and it's dawned on you after all that work, from being undrafted to the CBA to breaking in with Jersey, you're going to the NBA Finals. After all that turbulence you described that season, and you're there and you're soaking it in, after everything you had to go through just to get there, and you did it in the greatest city in the world. When that buzzer sounded that night in June of 99, how'd you feel? Take me through it.
Ooh, man. If you look at the clips, I have my hat to the side and I have my hands up, and all I can think about is what I went through to get there, what I put my body through and my mind through, and the opportunities that I had prior. I thought about my CBA owner, Andy Long, who flew me to Houston to a rehab facility, flew me to Houston. CBA, where there's no money being paid, we made $500 after taxes. But she took a kindness to me, and she was a recovering alcoholic. And she flew me to Houston. So I thought about her. I thought about my ex-wife and what I put her through. What I put her through, and she still stuck by me when we were divorced with my children. She was a part of that. I thought about my father. I thought about my mother. I thought about all the people that were there for me. And then it came to the city of New York, where I was different. You know, I can't speak for everybody else, but I went to every borough, every hood, strip clubs. I'm gonna tell you the truth. I don't lie. I don't pretend. Anybody that know me, I tell the truth. I went to strip clubs. I went to the clubs. I did everything because I didn't have bodyguards. I didn't have security. I was on 33rd Street by the Garden talking to fans. I'm all about the people. And I'm a visitor in your city, right? So if I'm a visitor in your city and you only see me playing the game of basketball, then I'm a liar. So I want you to get to know who I am. The basketball is what I did. That's not who I am. So I thought about all those things. And, you know, in Jersey with the teams we had with Kenny and Chris Morris and Derek Coleman and Dwayne Simpson, Young, all these guys were a part of that with me because they helped me. They helped me. Armand Gilliam, who Rick Mahorn, who was one of my biggest supporters through my rookie years, I thought about those guys because it wasn't for me, it was for them, because you allowed me to be the player that I am sharing this moment. You made me. So I don't take a lot of credit in that. You know what I mean? I give all them credit along with my family that they they saw something in me. I remember Rick Mahorn, and I'm gonna get emotional. This dude, man, he pulled me to the side and he said to me, and it made me feel like I was a kid. He said, "Why are you at the end of the bench?" I said, "Well, everybody's sitting there." He said, "You can't learn shit from the end of the bench. Go sit up there by the coach. Sit by the coach so you can know what's going on once you get in the game. You sitting down here because you're scared. You can't be afraid to fail. You only fail when you're afraid." And so he made me go to the front of the bench by the coaches. And that man who played for the Bad Boys, um, played in the league for years. Uh, Man, the dude is he's so special to me. So uh, I gave credit to everybody. I didn't take credit for nothing that I did at that time. Uh, it was a celebratory thing that went on. There was a lot of excitement, energy. But once I got an opportunity to breathe, I thought about all those guys that helped me along, my family, my mother, my father, my sister, and my brothers, um, my school, my friends. But that only lasted an hour because we had to go up against the Twin Towers, and they were dynamic.
Yeah, that
They
was
were
a
dynamic.
yeah.
And the bad part about it was, well, you want to add another question? Because I was going to tell you about the finals.
No, go ahead. I was agreeing with you. Go ahead.
So everybody know we get to the finals. LJ's back was done. He was done. He battled. Kirk Thomas battled. Camby did what he could do. If we had had Patrick, we had a real good chance to beat them. Um, my knees were shot. Everybody's banged up, so they beat us. And so I'm in Kona, Hawaii. After it was over, I'm getting ready to get married. And so I'm a golfer. So I'm in the clubhouse, getting ready to get my stuff from one of my partners. As soon as I walk out the clubhouse, who do I see? David Robinson. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me, man. What is going on in the air? So David's like, hey, Chris. I said, man, good job, man. He said, are you going out to play? I'm like, yeah, but we gotta force him. There's only two of us. Because I didn't want to hear him bragging about he just beat us. Like, David's a nice guy. He's a nice guy, but I didn't want to hear that. But I felt bad because when I got married, he had a place there and he came over and told me congratulations. So David, if you're watching, thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Um, he's an incredible dude. They had a great team. Um, I don't make any excuses at all. We tried our hardest from the HC. We had more fans than the Alamo
Oh, for sure.
that year. Yeah, it was serious, man.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. There's no passion like New York fans, especially Knicks fans. And so, Chris, this has been a blast. I love reliving this great time in Knicks history with you. Of course, as I mentioned, you played in Toronto. You had a great opportunity to play with Vince Carter there and Oakley again, and obviously back in New Jersey with Jason Kidd and Kenyon Martin. But the people will always remember you. I know I will, as a Knick, because that is, especially for the fans that lived that era in real time, you are part of something that has a special place in their heart. And you talked about getting to know them, not wanting to be a stranger. They look back on you. They look back on Charlie, Starks, LJ, Oakley, and those are the guys. Maybe they weren't the guys filling up the stat sheets like Jordan was, or Curry does now, or LeBron does now. But what they love is the heart and the passion. And you guys brought that. And if this current Knicks team, or any NBA team for that matter, can play with a quarter of the heart and the intensity that you guys played with, the league will be better off for it, you know. And I want to thank you for what you brought to those teams, and I want to thank you for being here tonight. And I have a segment that I always end with, and it's called Rapid Fire. It's 5 hit and run questions from me, 5 hit and run answers from you. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm always ready.
All right. So first, and you can say multiple here, and you can say past in this rapid fire too if you want. The funniest teammate you ever had.
The funniest teammate I had was probably me.
All right, I can believe it. I can believe
it was me. Me and shoot, he go kill me. John out of Syracuse, my rookie. Oh shoot, John. I can't remember, but John Starks, one of them. And I'm gonna tell you a story. Kid, we got time?
Yeah, go ahead, slip it in.
All right, real quick.
All right.
John gonna be mad at me, but we're at Morton Steakhouse in Cleveland. Me, old John, and Patrick. And we're sitting there getting ready to eat, and a kid comes up and says, "Mr. Stark, you're my favorite player. Can you sign an autograph?" John's like, "Yeah, kid, I'll sign an autograph, but give me a minute, let me finish dinner." So the kid comes back and says, "Mr. Stark, can I get your?" Yes. He said, "My name is Mark with a C." John spells his name. True story. To Kark, C-A-R-K. True story.
That sounds like something that he would do.
John's going, "Hey, John, I love you, brother. But, hey, it is what it is, man."
Yeah, it is what it is. Second, besides Madison Square Garden, besides MSG, favorite arena to play in?
The Forum, L.A.
Oh, of course. Hey, that makes sense. Another iconic venue.
Yep.
Third, I know you talked about baseball earlier. If not for basketball, let's not say baseball. Besides baseball, what other sport could you have seen yourself playing besides basketball as a career?
Football.
Well, there you go. That's what Charlie Ward did. Ward did. You know, and Charlie Ward was a Heisman winner. Fourth,
awesome.
during your days playing in New York City, favorite bar or restaurant in the city?
Ooh, that's tough. Shoot, they're going to be mad at me. There was a bar right next to the Garden on 33rd, a little Italian place. Can't remember the name of it, but it's right outside where we came in, where the guests came in. So on 33rd, if it wasn't that one, it was Tao.
All right, there you go. Good choices for sure. Fifth and finally, let's say you got a free agent, a marquee free agent, right? And they're courting him in New York. I'm just throwing a name out there as an example. Donovan Mitchell, right? Or De'Aaron Fox, or whoever. If you can be in the room and sell them on coming to the Knicks, what would you tell them?
Do you want to be great or mediocre? What do you want to be?
Simple as that.
Selling point. But before we finish, because I didn't give them the kudos. When I went to Toronto, I played for a legendary coach, Lenny Wilkins. And Oak was there, Vince was there. Vince and I were neighbors in a condo. I understand now what it means to be a black coach in our sport. Okay. I'm not going to get into depth of what I'm trying to say. I don't want to make it seem like Black History Month, whatever, but I speak about this all the time. It's not just this month. This is every day of my life. That man is one of the best teachers, the best men, the best tutors that I've ever come across in my life. And that city that welcomed me there to be a part of their success. So, Coach Wilkins, I love you. Haven't talked to you in years. I hope you're in good health. City of Toronto, I appreciate you guys. You guys allowed my family, my friends, to be a part of your culture. Mike, brother, you have an opportunity to do something special. You carry yourself the right way. You're a great host, reporter. Keep working, keep striving to be great. You're going to be on any network that you want to. But just keep pushing, brother. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, and I appreciate you being here. And to everybody that watched tonight, that came out to support the show, I appreciate you guys. Chris, stick around. We'll say our goodbyes off the air. Coming up on the Mike and Maven podcast, we like to mix it up. So he was a customs agent in Miami during the wild days where cocaine was flying left and right, and he was getting some real bad people off the streets. His name is Miles' son, and he'll join me Monday on the Mike the New Haven podcast. So looking forward to that one. That's going to be episode 149. In the meantime, on behalf of Chris Childs, I am Mike Colón. Have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe, and we will see you next time. Take care, everybody.
Blessings.